Hi, everybody. It's Nikki with Dead Ringers, and we're using a new format today. And glad that you could join us on this Thursday. And for all the geeks out there, this is going to be a fun one today. We're focused on metrics and how they can really drive customer experiences with the folks that call into your funeral homes, to your cemeteries, to your combos, to your pet loss organizations. And I have a friend and colleague with us today. His name is Brent Thomas, and he's been around the profession a long time, just like a lot of us have here. And he really brings a lot of great insight on kind of the numbers part of things. And um, I don't know that there hasn't been a discussion I've had with him that hasn't had the word profitability in it. So I think that's kind of a key part of our discussion today. We feel that the metrics are very important for folks that are, let's say, sales counselors, let's say funeral directors, but also owners and managers, those folks that are helping families in cemetery situations. So really covers a gamut of everything. And what did you tell me earlier, Brent, who's the audience for this particular webinar?
It's a bit of a struggle, but I think it's pretty much anyone that answers the phone. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have some fun metrics that we're going to share today. And what I'm excited about is that we're actually going to launch our dashboard where we have all of the calls housed here at Dead Ringers and talk a little bit about those metrics and having you listen. Well, I do have some calls for you guys to listen to. That's another, we call them cringeworthy. So we'll have that today. But so taking you through the metrics, and Brent, really with his expertise and background, will feed into some of those metrics and things that I share today. So with that being said, Brent, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how we'll move into our discussion today on 50,000 mystery calls reveal customer experience insights and revenue growth opportunities?
Well, sure. I mean, everybody wants to hear about me for the next 30 minutes, right? And living up to all that data, let's see how fast that rolls. But I do love data. And I say that because I'm going to take you way back, but I'm going to make it quick. The reason I focus so much, I think, on the profitability and sales is, well, I was Al Bundy. At 16, I started in women's shoes. And I learned so many things back then. And then I moved from there and I was straight commissioned. So since I was 16, I was always on commission. And then I moved from there to electronics and furniture all through college. They gave me a retail background, a customer service feeling that was different, right? And in retail, people don't really always think about the entire sales process. Well, and that's what I was studying and working on. I knew I was going to rep, right? I was going out in the sales world. So I was always doing something different. So in the end, it actually worked out very well for me. Actually, they asked me to be a manager. And I said, why would I make more part-time than I would be a manager? So then I left and went out and repped furniture for a few, was a national retail sales manager for a small furniture manufacturer. Again, all retail based, making sense. Then I tripped and fell in the cemetery. Um, it never was on my mind, right? And actually, my sister-in-law was the comptroller at the time, so she suggested it. And right away, that was Buchanan Group in Indianapolis, Flannery Buchanan. And next thing you know, I'm managing cemeteries. And a few years later, I'm off in St. Louis, vice president of cemeteries and funeral homes, building two funeral homes, two cemeteries, building a sales machine. And, we all changed a little after 9/11. And that's when I landed at Batesville for pet cremation. That's right, pet cremation at Batesville. It was a startup in Florida and Indiana. And then we sold that. I was a casket rep for a while and then got the chance to come back home to Batesville, or not home, my home is Indiana, but back to the home office to be with Nectar Ramirez on the options team back in, we're going back a bit, maybe 2008 range. Then I was kind of a subject matter expert and traveled North America for a good year and a half before we kind of built this team that was sales out of that. And then from there, I moved into key accounts for Batesville. And then from there, I went into training and development, sales training and development for homesteaders. So I say all that to tell you, when you hear the things I come up with, you're like, where did they come with? Well, I've pretty much touched every little angle we have, except being a licensed funeral director. So I love it. I'm here for the families. And as everyone says, once it gets in your blood, you have it forever. It was that terminal family I helped through everything. And there's stories with him that was great, but it was at the end, after his services at the cemetery, mama came up, gave me a hug, big Italian family, gave me a kiss on the cheek and said, God bless you. We couldn't have done it without you. I've been hooked since then, and I've never stopped. So anyway, that was my 60 or, like 1800 seconds. Anyway, that was my short version. That's everything you need to know.
Yeah. So if I were to ask, why metrics are so important or why we measure things are why it's so important, your love of numbers, how can it help us to drive revenue and what are some things that we can think about where numbers are concerned?
Yeah, what it really does is numbers are a pattern. I know I sound like the guy that sees numbers all the time, and I do. It scares my wife all the time. But I, it creates habits and patterns for us if we see it, right? So anyone could take a time. I'm going to go with sales and just say, someone, how long did it take? How many days from the time you met the family till, the first call till you actually got an appointment, and then you're measuring the time again until you've closed the sale. You're counting how many leads did I have? In the funeral home, we're using numbers for profitability. How many times, if I say this, does it work? The other hidden one is we got to always remember to look at what not being said or is being said by the numbers, but it's not what the number said, right? If the number says 10% did that, that means 90% didn't. Sometimes we forget to look at those. We look at the ones that are written. So everything to me is just always about numbers. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to dig into those here in a minute, but some housekeeping here. There is a function for those of you who are watching and listening today called the Q&A, and we love questions. So we'll have some time here at the end of our webinar today, and we'll address some of those questions if you have them. And as I mentioned, I'll be sharing our data here on the screen, and we're just kind of having some fun today, talking about the numbers, some things that I've heard in my almost 10 years now with Dead Ringers. And I think you go slow to go fast. Is that how you say that, Brent? And that we've been around
Yeah.
for so long, and it's finally all of these metrics are kicking in, and we can really see trends. And we literally do have 50,000 calls, and so we have a good sample size when it comes to the metrics. And I like to think of our metrics as literally the phone rings and we hang up, and what's the magic that happens in the middle of those two particular sounds. And we measure all of that, and uh, really want to cover and kind of dig into those things today. And along the way, what are little things that we can do to increase the customer experience? So anyway, back to if you have questions, please throw those out there, and we'll get to those near the end of our chat today. Brent and I are both very introverted, so this might get a little might get a little tedious. No, I don't think so. We're going to try to make the metrics glamorous, but I'm also hoping, and Brent is too, that it's an eye-opening and awakening experience for you guys. And we are not tough when our ringers, as we call them, call into a funeral home or cemetery or combo, presenting as a family in those particular situations. And we want to give folks the benefit of the doubt, but there are more bad experiences that we have than good experiences. And we are on a mission. We are on a mission
Yep.
within the profession to make things better. And I do also believe that the phone is still our lifeline. We may have those folks that text us or email us, but I had a funeral director tell me once that our phone rings, it's an emergency for somebody. And I think that's a really interesting way from an empathetic perspective to think about what it is that we do within the profession. Okay, so I'm going to launch the beautiful dashboard that we have. Maybe.
Well, I'll just add that it was the data that made me say Dead Ringers is the place to be. It's the hidden data. When you talk about 11% revenue increases year over year, I'm like, that is like the hidden secret. It's the secret sauce that we have. It's just the numbers themselves were amazing. And I think that's what Nikki's saying. All the years of the good work is just compiled and compiled. And the other one, we could be called the Dead Trainers instead of the Dead Ringers, because I don't think anyone realizes how much training Dead Ringers does on a weekly basis. So someday I'm going to see if we can calculate that. And right now we'll say we're a leader. We can't say we're the leader. I mean, I could, but I might not be right. So
Well, we're very proud of what we do. So I don't want to make this an infomercial either, but
no,
it's always nice to pat ourselves on the back. So
I was patting
okay,
you guys. So
thank you.
for all the work.
So I have launched our dashboard here, and before we get started, I'm going to play a little call, and I want you guys, as you listen to it, to kind of think back to what you're hearing here and some of the things that how you would have handled the call differently, definitely with that, but how the particular tactics or lack thereof can really change the trajectory of a good call that comes into your funeral home or cemetery. So let me play that real quick.
I was calling to get some information. My dad is in hospice right now, so I'm just kind of trying to call around for my mom and handle it for her.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't know what kind of information you could give me. We haven't had any set plans. I know my dad has mentioned cremation, but like I said, we don't have anything like set in stone.
Okay. Can you hold for just a moment? I'm going to go into the other office.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
These are seconds that we're ticking here that we're on hold, but it feels more like minutes.
Ma'am?
Yeah,
Okay. Sorry about that.
that's okay.
Okay. So you had mentioned that you'd be interested in cremation.
Yeah, my dad has kind of mentioned that. He's just a really simple kind of guy, so.
Sure. Okay. We do handle those services. Would you be having any services along with that?
I'm not sure. I just wanted, my mom is going to be handling it, but I just wanted to call around for her, and then I'm just going to relay the information to her.
Okay. You just want to get an idea how much it would cost and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. What we charge for cremation is around $3,200, just somewhere around there. And that's why I was asking if you wanted services. That would be additional, and then newspaper notices would be additional. That's what the charges. But if you're just looking for a ballpark figure, it would be about $3,200. Now, if you're looking to go with the least expensive, which obviously most people are, I can tell you that we are not the cheapest. I can tell you that probably, I can't remember the name of it. It's over funeral home, but they have a separate business that handles cremations, and I think I remember someone saying that they charge like $8.95.
Oh, okay.
So I just want to be perfectly honest with you. We are not the least expensive. So
Yeah, well, thank you for passing that along. I will definitely look into that.
yeah, and it's that runs it, but it's not called. I mean, they have a funeral home and all, but it's a different business that they run, and if you call, you can ask them what their cremation company's called that does that for a lot less.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye bye.
All right. So Brent, give me some feedback here.
Well, I don't know where to begin, right? It's like, let's think about who we are taking this call. I just want to look at it from the customer experience, though, right? So again, her name must be ma'am. We never got the name. Just said okay and okay. But the one I loved for me, it was the cremation point, right? It was kind of like, would you be having any services with that? Like, why would you do that? That just, so I'm looking at it from the customer experience side right now. They're saying, wow, the sales side's a whole nother story. So we'll just stick with the CX side right now. So you in agreement with that? What would you do in those situations?
Oh, there's so much. I dissect this call in some of our training, but there talk about profitability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Zero. I mean, literally sending the call to a competitor. And I think this is it's important that we understand what we're saying. I know that I've had some folks say, well, he was doing the right thing for the customer. And I'm like, no, he wasn't.
No, no. She
No,
said,
because yeah.
yeah, she said,
Um,
I'm not sure. I mean, it was the perfect opportunity to say, well, has anyone ever professionally explained cremation to you? No. And to have that conversation. But anyway, I say no because of that, and then it was like, well, I'm going to start at the bottom and we're going to give you all the things you can add on. Well, I think, I don't know if you guys know this here. I'm going to go back to my retail world real quick. You got me on a tangent. Here we go. So I
okay.
don't know if you know this, but in the mattress world, right? You've all had to buy a mattress before. Everybody's thought about it. What do you always think when you walk in the door? Who's going to take me to the most expensive one, right? They're going to
Right.
try to sell me the most expensive, right? And you came in with the one going, hey, it's 99 cents or something, some cheap. You're like, it's a loss leader to get you in the door. We all get this. But what you don't know is how they're paid commission. There is an ideal keystone spot that you're looking for. My commission was 20 to 25% there. The most expensive, I only got 10% on. So I didn't want to sell it anyway. So what would I do? Oh, come here. You got to lay on this thing and try it out. It'll help me determine what fuel we're shooting. I know you're not going to buy it at that price, but let's just try that out. Well, guess what? My main keystone spot was 2 down, and that's where I made all my money. We know that once you laid on a mattress, you would never, if you lay on a mattress, you won't go up more than 1. If you lay, whatever you lay on, you will go down no more than 3. Same thing here, right? Why start at the bottom and try to make somebody work up? So I'm giving you that to give you examples of how other things in our world really do work. It's all about where we start. So part of that, I know I'll run tangents on this. I have to stop. We've been
I
taught
think,
good, better, best, and it really should be best, better, good. And we'll talk about that a little later. It'll come up again, I'm sure.
yeah.
Okay.
No, I could listen to you all day. And I think
Me too. No,
sometimes,
just kidding.
we think we're different and what we are is a unique thing that, our business is, but we do a disservice to families like this call, like ma'am,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and not, giving her the experience. And just because she said my dad's a simple kind of guy doesn't mean he's a cheap kind of guy.
Yeah.
And so sometimes those key phrases that we hear our consumers and customers and client families that call in say we need to dig in and ask questions. And that's another key thing I think that makes a really good customer experience is asking questions. So in this particular call, we have 5 key things that we have seen themes in Dead Ringers when it comes to call quality. And the first is lack of empathy, which is really shocking to us. But there's really a lot of empathy here, and that he didn't even recognize that her father was that a loss is about to occur.
Yeah.
Did not even provide any condolences there. So this is something that we unfortunately don't hear enough of: genuine compassion and empathy. Another key thing is missed opportunities. So, he missed this opportunity to educate this person, but also to provide revenue and profitability to the firm. So those kinds of things we see happen. Next is a lack of professionalism. We'll hear
Yeah.
some other calls when it comes to that. And kind of what goes along with that is also lack of self-awareness. And I literally just had a conversation with one of our customers where we were in a video chat and she says, can you see all of the staff running behind me while I'm trying to have this call? And so things like that, the background noise, those kinds of things really feed into a unprofessional conversation. Another thing is the confusing information that we provide. I believe the gentleman that we just heard was trying to explain something like a low cost option that this particular competitor offers, similar to, maybe a cremation society, something like that. So confusing. They're a funeral home, but they're not.
Right.
So we're providing, it's confusing information. And then long hold times. That's another key piece that can really dig into your revenues if you're having a bad experience. So that being said, I want folks to know that I talked about the magic, from ring to hang up. And we have an overall score right now of all of those 50,000 calls of around 60% out of 100. our benchmark is 71 and above. So it's not like a school paper where you get 100 and it's great, but you're doing the right things and you're acting like humans. If it's 100, there might be something wrong, if that makes sense. But one thing that we're able to do is track where folks are in price quotes that we get. And every call that we make, we're asking for pricing. And it's somewhat of a subjective metric here, but on all of the calls that we have within our dashboard right now, we've based on the experiences that we're providing our callers, we have almost $12 million that would have been a good opportunity for us to serve families based on that phone experience. Then the lost calls are something like you just heard. We have some work to do there. So, around 15 million in lost calls. So from a scoring perspective, now we know. I think, phone calls, it's hard to think about, how do I put quality behind these particular activities that we're doing? And it's listening. It's listening and being prepared. And I think you mentioned earlier is the consistency. Are you doing things in the same fashion each time? So before we move into more of the details, are there any aha moments that you have as you look at these particular metrics or things that you'd like to share here?
Well, me share, of course. Well, the other part that's not here, right? Again, this is only calls that have had a dollar value put on them. What we're not seeing are the ones that don't actually get a hold of anyone. I never thought that happened until I really saw the data. We actually have locations that the callers can't even get to them. They make 3 attempts and they don't even get through. So that adds to it. I'm amazed. And I say that because I just didn't expect that to even be in our profession, right? We all make ourselves 24/7 available. It's part of it. And it's part of that calling and passion that so many have. But just imagine that happened, right? It's just like the customer experience coming out of that is crazy. And I'm gonna give one little tip now because we got to add these tips in here.
Please.
When you want to have a little, I'll tell you, I'm on a spectrum somewhere because I don't register empathy instantly, right? It's like my wife even laughs and watches. She's like, and there it is. It comes back around. It takes a minute. But what I had to learn to do was a portion of active listening. And it's so easy. The first part to make of any conversation is you got to build credibility and rapport before they're going to trust you. Well, the easiest way to do that is use their name. So ask it and use it. And that's easy. Just start doing that in any conversation you can. Try to use the name twice, somewhere in the middle. And then again at the end, especially if you're going to close, the close is best. Use their name. Ask questions. Here's the key to a question. Just restate what they said, right? I mean, here, what was it? Instead, she said, my dad had mentioned cremation. Great. So, they could have just been, well, Mary, it's good that your dad mentioned it to you. Could you tell me a little more about that? Right now, I care. I have empathy. I'm listening to her. I don't have empathy. I just ask the same question. Just kind of repeat what they say, right? If it's, I'd like to have this. Mary, what I hear you saying is you would like to have this. Could you tell me a little more about that? We're not going to say yes or no's, but it gives you time to rethink too, because they're going to ask the question, now address it. They're going to repeat it, or their odds are going to give you more detail. So there's one little quick tip for more empathy and actually probably taking the call to a whole new level.
Yeah. Yeah. We, I think with the whole FTC thing, that's another webinar, you guys.
Yeah. It's a whole nother one.
I think we've become a little gun shy there because we don't want to, say the wrong thing. Should it be that, the FTC shopping us on the phone? And that doesn't mean that you can't engage with the customer. And, if the caller says, tell me your lowest cost option, they've specifically asked you for an option, then you have to provide that. But if someone says, well, how much does it cost to do a funeral there? Then you can start asking questions. Our cemetery folks, you guys don't have to worry about that. Lucky you.
Right.
But, I think sometimes we get a little gun shy and we just start spouting off numbers.
I have a question, Nikki. You're so much better at the FTC, and this is where I get to show I'm new. But even if they said your lowest price option, couldn't we say, Mary, I hear you. If I understand right, you're looking for a low cost option. Were you looking for the cremation or burial option for the low cost, or just the lowest in general, right? You could still ask a question to clarify, but she might open up and actually talk more, go, oh, well, I didn't know there were more cremation options, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, as everything I'd read, that was still legal to ask. You're just asking a clarifying question to give the right answer. You still have to give the answer,
Yeah.
but
It's
yeah,
what the FTC is looking for is that you're providing accurate information.
yes.
So
Okay.
I think that's a key piece there. So we do have lots of stuff out there regarding FTC on our website, guys. So if you're want to dig into that and you haven't already, please feel free to do so. So, but yes, it's asking questions is so important. And, you mentioned some of the things, the use of names, all of that, and those are all things that we measure. And just high level, I'm going to quickly take you through some of the things that our ringers are listening for. And these are hard-coded yes or no kinds of questions as a part of the rating process that our ringers use when they call in. And on the left-hand side, you'll see this objective category scoring. So we're listening for good quality interactions when it comes to how we answer the phone. So that's that initial answer. Some of the things that we're thinking about here is how many times does the phone ring until someone picks up? When they pick up, are they clearly stating the name of the business? Are they providing their own name when they answer? Tone of voice is huge here. Is it rushed? Do I sound disengaged? So these are key things that make for a good experience. And that is the very, very, very first impression. And if you
Yeah.
have someone that sounds like they're having a bad day every day, it's going to come across. So, again, anyone who answers the phone, you made a really good point there. And that if I'm that person, I call it the frontline facilitators. They're sometimes they're so important to what we do. How you sound and what you say sets the tone for the rest of the call. So it's important that we know where we are. And we're doing a good job there. We're in the green. In there.
Yeah.
And
I have a tip on that though,
sure.
if I can. I told you they're just going to start coming out. Actually, I'm trying to remember where I took this from. Oh, Paul St. Pierre. He had it in Selected Independent. Just to quote where it came from. I got to pass through where it is. He said, before you ever meet with a family or go on the sales call, look in the mirror and smile a couple times as fast as you can. There's times I've done it and I actually laugh at myself because I'm actually doing it, but your entire tone will change. Everything that you do when you answer that phone will change because you made yourself kind of smile because you were doing the goofy thing of looking in the mirror and trying to smile, or even not looking in the mirror, just making yourself smile twice before you say hello. Try it. It actually works.
Yeah. And even though what we do is somber, it helps you to become a human. I think sometimes
Yeah.
we become so mechanical and transactional. That's another thing that we've done webinars and things on. So yes. Speaking of transactional though, one thing where we're really suffering is the hold and transfer. And I'm not going to dig a lot into this, but as a profession, the death care needs to think about what's happening when a family calls in, and if I have to place them on hold, what we're doing. And the key thing I think here that will lower this particular score and lowers a good customer experience is the transfer. We'll take that call. I'm not the licensed funeral director, or I'm the admin taking the call. I transfer that call to a colleague and I don't give them heads up on what's coming. So the caller has to repeat that information all over again. So again, that's lack of professionalism, that's lack of empathy. So for those of you on the call today, I want you to take a hard look and listen to what's happening. A lot of you have very high-tech phone systems. They'll track hold times for you. Take a look at your own own hold times. I think our average hold right now is around a minute, and that's an eternity, guys. We felt 21 seconds. So, that's a key area that if you make some improvements there, it can really make a good experience. And we're often asked at Dead Ringers, well, should I have music on my hold? Should I, what do you suggest? And we like the recorded message, but it's important that you keep it fresh. And, I think it really helps you to tout who you are in your business. Silence is deadly. Sorry for the pun there, but there's, yeah.
You only need silence in the close.
Yeah.
When you ask for a close, you play Jeopardy in your head and don't speak again because the old rule is whoever speaks first loses. But no,
Yeah.
The other one is there's data analytics again. If you know your average hold time is 45 seconds, make sure that infomercial that you put out there is 45 to 60 seconds. You don't need a 5-second one because they don't want to hear it 9 times, right?
Yeah.
So again, that's where that data plays into giving the best customer experience.
Yeah. So, setting a precedent that if a call comes in and I'm transferring it to a colleague, I've done the right thing in asking for the caller's name, getting a little bit of information about their situation. And as that person comes on the line with the person handling the arrangements or whatever that might be, that they address that caller by name, provide condolences should it be necessary, and then be there to help. So, those little things may sound, it's work, you guys. This takes a lot of work. And if you're not doing all of these great things when the phone rings, all of the other great things that you do in your arranger conferences, the beautiful things that you have in your funeral home, the beautiful grounds that you have at your cemetery, don't mean anything if you can't get folks in the door based on that phone experience. So, first engagement is that discussion, once I get with the person who's going to be helping me. And again, that we stumble over that a little bit and that we're asking for names again, or you heard that first call, that we're not digging in and taking control of the call, I think is a key thing there. You mentioned names earlier. We're not,
Yeah.
Only half of the time we're asking for someone's name. That's just shocking.
It's amazing, right? I mean, that's the simplest way to increase a customer experience and give you empathy and personality. It's just, again, I'm going to give a sales one with this too. Women's shoes, right? I'm a 16-year-old guy. It's like, seriously, I get phone calls. Do you have such and such in this size? Can I get your name? Before I even went to look, I always got names, right? I learned this. Again, numbers run up here and I just could see it. I'd ask for their name. Then if I did get to put it on hold, I made sure I had their phone number so I could call them back the next time I was in if they didn't pick it up. Well, guess what? That just meant they went in my blue book. I had a little blue book that I put their names and numbers in. And what was nice then by doing it, I remembered their name when they came in. I'd be like, oh, the Navy size 9, Mary, how you doing? Right. And now you're a great person. So names, think about when somebody uses your name, how much better you feel. So, but yeah, I give that story just to say, even back then, just saving names, you thought I'd made friends with people, and then they'd call me, this is Mary. I just want to see if you got anything new in. Or I'd call randomly 6 weeks later when it's quiet and be like, Mary, I just got a new shipment in, right? It just, you become friends by name, that you just soften the credibility happens. And I think when you do that hold too, kind of as we're talking about it, is get that person's name and ask them if you can have permission to put them on hold. I literally stop when people do that to me, as opposed to that. Remember the old days of hold, please. They didn't say
we
hello.
hear it.
It was
Hold
hold.
on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah. Mary, I'm going to transfer you back to Bob. Are you okay if you hold for a second? If I put you on hold? Sure. At least they feel like you asked and they gave permission to do it.
Yeah.
So,
I could do a 3-day seminar on holds and transfers. So we'll move on there. But thanks for those tips. I mean, it's the use of names. It's not just I have to ask their name. No, it becomes a part of your entire process.
what
right?
was that rule?
Wait,
what was that rule
yeah.
you said? I'm sorry, I interrupted. See, this is why Nikki and I should not be on webinars like this. You said in that presentation that I sat in at ICCFA, you gave it a name. Monogram a call?
Monogram the call.
What was that
Yes.
again?
So monogramming the call is, think of, it's a part of phone etiquette. And as soon as that phone rings, thinking about how am I going to monogram this call? And so if you think of a monogram, it's your initials, and it's just kind of a thought starter or a reminder that, okay, I got to monogram this call, the name of the business, my name, my initials, and then the person who I'm going to be speaking with. And it's simply a question, may I ask who I'm speaking? And if you have one of those price shoppers that like, no, just give me, okay, that's fine. You don't have to, force them to give you your name, but just asking for it can set the tone of a really good experience, because then you're now having a conversation and you're not just being transactional and providing information. So yeah, monogramming the call. That means you were listening. Yay.
I was.
Yeah. All right, so names, every single call. And then repeating your name at the end of the call we find is really important, because as you know, people are making a lot of decisions and having to remember a lot of things through this process. So we find that that's helpful. Next is etiquette, and that's really what we kind of mentioned there is the use of names. that we're engaged, all of these kinds of things, that we're professional. That's what we're listening for with etiquette, and we're doing a good job there, I think. Services and pricing, we're almost, I think, where we need to be there. I think FTC kind of, we lack, I don't want to say clarity because we do a fairly good job with that, but we tend to be transactional and not, having those good discussions. And then next is what we call the valley of despair. And if we were to flip this graph this way, you could see, up, 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 then down, it's like the valley, and that's follow-up and setting the tone that the next natural step is a conversation can happen once we've hung up. So any kind of thoughts on follow-up, Brent?
Ooh, all kinds of thoughts on follow-up, depending on how it goes. But yeah, so I think the easiest one, even if you in your mind say this is a set price shopper, and we know a lot of those calls we get aren't 100% price shop. They're looking to talk, right? And you've heard those stats, and we won't go this time there, but something's just as simple. You've already got the name, and as you're going to see, I use Mary a lot. I for some reason, Mary's my name. I think it was Mary Ziegler all those years. I would put her into positions. I'd be like, well, I'm going to put Mary in this spot. But anyway, she used my name all the time, so I got in trouble too. So, it's like you could just say, well, Mary, I just wanted to, sounds like we've kind of answered most of the questions for you, but you'll probably have some more over time. So, if you don't mind, could I get your email address and I will send over a little bit about what we talked today. Maybe it's the price list, right? And I'm also include a link to our website. That way you don't have to go out searching. There are resources. So I'll make sure it's the link to the resource page. Well, and you know what? I've learned from some other families, this is the new add-on. They like to have it text because then they've got that link right on their phone. If you want, I can text that to you too. If I had your number, would you give, just ask, can I have permission to text you that? Now you got the number. That happens, and you say, well, tell you what, I'll give you a call in a couple of days just to see how things are going or to check in. What I just did, even if you only do half of it, is better than nothing. You've at least made an email contact and sent them information. And the question I have for all of you on here is, if we don't do it, how many people do you really think actually do it? So what would happen if you did something just as simple as that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Some of the anecdotal things that we hear from our training is folks kind of change their paradigm and how they set follow-up and all those types of things. Is that was a price shopper. I just don't think we're going to get that call because we're more expensive. They mentioned a competitor, and then they get the call. There's nothing that feels better. I had a call today, and I'm sure they were going to go to the competitor, and we got a call back saying, no one else spent any time with us or asked us any questions, and so we're going to go with you, even though most people don't choose cremation because of price. We saw that, and so I know sometimes we get caught in our ways, and I think sometimes we don't want to overwhelm families, but we're overwhelming them by not providing them education and information, and having them to do the heavy lifting on their own.
I have one for that. And I don't have the exact stat. It was a homesteader stat. I want to say I need to pull their annual program. They do survey twice a year, so I had their stats, and they're out there for anybody. You can grab them. I think it was. Well, here's what it did say. It said, why did you select cremation for your pre-arrangement? Here's what wasn't on the survey, because it was cheaper. That was never one of the answers. It just wasn't, or when it did deal with price, it was in that 7 or 10% range. But look at the other side. That meant 90% plus had nothing to do with price. So the data, it's just right there in front of us. It's just about paying. That's again, that data tells us so much. Like I said, if we just look at it, and sometimes you got to think about, okay, if 7 did, that means 93 didn't. I'll work with 93 all day long, right? The other thing is with pricing, and this is a whole nother subject. I mean, it's a whole nother webinar, right? But no one wants to ask a dumb question. When we say there's no such thing as a stupid question. There's some stupid questions. There really is, right? We know that, but we want to tell them there is no such thing as a dumb question. But if you don't know anything at all about cremation, what's the one question you could ask somebody and they could answer? Well, what's the price? What's the price ranges? Could you tell me a little more about price? They don't know what to ask. And believe it or not, I remember it was the latest they did the survey was 19. Options by Batesville did a survey, and there were still 9% that didn't even know cremation involved fire. We're talking 2019. So people don't know. So again, I think that it's just as you learn through all the things Nikki has, and it's how do I come up with to say the right things or get that conversation to go a whole different direction. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's just as simple as holds and phone call and using names.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the tidbits you gave us on how to entree into a follow-up. So and as you mentioned, consumers don't know, and I don't know who I stole this from. I'm really good at that, but it's the next natural step is for you to come in, or the next natural step is for me to email you what we talked about today, or the
Yes.
next natural step is, whatever that might be.
Yep.
We are the experts. I think maybe we do assume that consumers know more about what it is that we do. I mean, and if they Google it, you can't trust what google.com is gonna, is gonna share. So yeah.
And that you hit the point. I mean, that is it. Every one of us, everyone on this call, you are the trusted person in your community, and we miss that. That's why they call, right? It's not like, oh, great. Everybody thinks, well, I'm not their attorney. No, we are. We are that trusted person. And I want everybody to like pat themselves on the back and know that, but at the same time, carry that. There is some responsibility comes with it. All of us that receive these calls, we are that trusted official because they don't have anyone else. How many people do you know when you're in this the profession? You mention it, and you know how those conversations go. But because they don't have a lot of people to talk to in the profession, think about that. That's why you are that respected person in the community. So I say that to pat you on the back, but also pat yourself on the back and hold your head high and know that. That's why they're calling you.
And I think that sense of belonging within the community and things that we do has to come across on the phone. So if we're sounding
Yes.
disengaged,
Yes.
we have to match up all throughout the funeral home, the cemetery, that everything is all feeds together. I don't if I have a good experience on the phone, but then a bad experience once I get inside the building, then we're not aligned in how we serve our clients. So it's managers out there, you got to think of this holistically, that all feeds in together. So, all right, well, I could talk about this and I know you could do it all day, but I'm going to move real quickly into what we call our impression scores. And this is the feely stuff. These are the subjective things, but we feel it's important to get the opinion of our ringers. We feel they do a really good job. We're often told we had a ringer call us and we'll look at our database and we're like, no, we didn't. We didn't place that
Yeah.
call. So you have to be, we do our best to be real people. So we ask them key things, if this were you and you needed to use this funeral home cemetery pet loss facility for your own family needs, how did you feel about it? And accessibility is one. How easy, is it to get to someone? Now, you mentioned 3 strikes, you're out. So 25% of the time we're having issues in making connections. So, those things are important. Providing clarity. I think we do a good job in providing some information. However, it's more of the soft skills, I think, like with sincerity. And, we ask, if this were you, would you choose this funeral home, this cemetery, this business? And that's the buy-in. And so I think on some of the more technical things, we do a good job, but it's the softer skills where we kind of lose the opportunity. I mentioned lack of professionalism, empathy, those types of things. So I'm going to play my next call and to kind of fit into that sincerity and creating buy-in.
Okay. And roughly, what would that be coming with? That would include like a full chapel service. Okay. I get a mama burger platter with small gravy. I would like mama burger with. Would you like any apple with berry packages? No, just that. Okay. All right. Sorry about that, sir.
Hmm. So I know that's a little hard to hear, and you know why? Because he's on his cell phone in a drive-through, and you know he had the nerve to place his order. So self-awareness, you know, thinking about that, and then the lack of empathy in this particular instance, it just blows my mind. And I want to say, I mean, this is kind of an extreme call, but we have, you know, calls and things where we'll hear background noise, or we're, you know, there's one call that we have, the guy says, good luck with it, you know, when talking about searching for prices. I mean, where do these attitudes come from? It, you know, so I don't want you to feel that we're beating you up today either, but
Yeah.
we are dead serious at Dead Ringers about what we do to serve our families. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the day to day. You know, I'm out at my lunch. Oh my gosh, here calls some, you know, that it's not about us. You know, it's about the families that we serve. So anyway, we call that the
Yeah.
the mama burger call.
Yeah. And you know, the other thing too with that, even though it sounds like, yeah, maybe we're beating up and telling everybody ideas, it's just to share ideas, but just one thing at a time. You can't, if you, it's going to change all the time. Whatever it is today, if I realize on the last call I didn't use the name right, I'm just going to make sure I do that better next time. It's not like, oh, I got to worry about 12 things at once. Just one thing at a time.
Yeah. Um,
Yep.
yeah. So anyway, we just think that it's important to to share that kind of information. And we wouldn't know that this was happening if there wasn't a quality check within this particular firm. So you know, being
Yeah.
self-aware and um, in this kind of situation, this is one of those one-up. Those in cemetery, I think, are really familiar with this, and that I'm the one on call today, and so
Yep.
should a call come in, then I'm the first up. Um, and he was first up, and he happened to be out at lunch, and he could have simply said, he could have pulled out of the line, talk about commissions. What's more important, you know, your fast food meal or earning a commission, and or you know, I'm not in a good spot right now. I want to be able to devote my full attention to you. Is it okay that I call you back in the next 5 minutes? That's simple. So anyway, and I'm going to move on real quick. And for those of you who have our dashboard, you know, this is all really powerful data. But one of the key things that you'd mentioned earlier was best, better, good.
Good. Yep.
And when we are asked pricing, we're asking pricing questions, and we don't say what's the least expensive, or you know, all those types of things. We just simply ask, you know, how much does it cost to do a funeral there, or, you know, those types of things. And 82% of the time, we're leading with that lowest cost option first.
Which is
Oh,
amazing, right?
yeah.
When you think about that. Yeah, that one, I struggle with that one so much. See, again, that's why I said instead of good, better, best, we should always think of it ourselves as best, better, good. And I know it's going to take you a while to even be able to say best, better, good. And then if you're like me, you throw in a bestest just to mess with everybody. I give you four. I want a bestest, best, better, good. But um, again, I could give examples that'll go on for a while. But you know, if you tell somebody your cremation ranges between here and here, and they come in, they're like, "Wow, you took me for $4,000." The exact same numbers in the other order goes, "I saved three." They were the same numbers. So it's one of those where it's just really, we learn to always say top down. You'll be amazed. And I give this challenge, I've been giving it for years. Even on any webinar, any Con Ed, anyone that tries it tomorrow and it doesn't work, call me. Call me. Start high to low and see if the family picks the lowest. Even if you're meeting with a family at need, present three options, high to low, all the time. If you do that, it actually changes. For those of you in sales, it'll change everything. But try to find three good options. And again, if it doesn't work, call me, find me. I've never been called.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh. Well,
But
again, we wouldn't know that this is happening if you're not measuring it. So we talked a lot
yes.
about, you know, what the metrics tell us. And again, it's engaging in questions, you know, that gets you to that. And I know we've all done lots of work in personalizing services. And that's where I think sometimes we can really build opportunities there, and asking questions, you know, what did you have in mind? You know,
Yeah.
and I don't think we're asking those kinds of things enough in those initial conversations that we have once the phone rings.
And the
So,
severity of this is 50,000 calls, 80%. That's 40,000. That's a huge number. And that number is like a 5-year number. That's the numbers in this system. So it's just amazing when you think about that, that there's that many calls that are going that way. Because I know none of us think like, well, we're not doing that here. But again, it's happening in the profession. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not you. It just happens.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I knew we'd go kind of over.
Really,
But
how?
I don't know that we have any questions. The Q&A, I'm looking at it now, and I hope I'm looking at the right thing. But anyone out there, feel free to click on the Q&A icon at the top of your screen if you have it, or any comments that you have, maybe what's worked for you. Okay, doesn't look like we have any questions coming in. All right. Well, I am going to play then a call that we feel is tactically good, but also provides a good customer experience. So let me pull that up here real quick. And we've been given permission to play this by the funeral director in the firm there. So I am really proud of this particular funeral director, and I'm going to let this play for you.
Calling Roberts of Ocala. This is Erica. How may I help you?
Yeah, I was just wondering what your price is for a cremation service there.
Sure. May I ask your name, sir?
Yeah, I'm Sam.
Hi, Sam. Is this for somebody who has already passed?
My dad's health is declining and just getting some information for now.
Sure. I'm sorry to hear that he's not doing well. Along with this cremation, were you thinking of doing any kind of funeral services?
Not sure the details yet, but probably a little small gathering of maybe 10 or so family members.
Sure. And were you thinking of having that gathering once the cremation took place or beforehand?
Yeah, I'd say after the cremation. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just asking these questions so I know the correct pricing to give you. Because we have what we call a cremation with a memorial service, and that just means we have the cremation take place and we have a little celebration with them here at the funeral home with the cremated remains. Or if you were not wanting to use our facility for the memorial service, we can do what we call a basic cremation, where we just take care of doing the cremation process for you, and you later on have a little gathering with your family elsewhere, let's say in your home or something like that. I can give you pricing for both.
So that call goes on and she provides him information. She offers follow-up by saying, I'd like to email this, what we've talked about today, to you. Is it okay that I do that? So she gets his phone number, she gets his email, and she does, an excellent job. I'm glad that she recognized that his father, she provided empathy there. And so Erica is kind of our shining star, and that there are those good calls out there, guys. And we think that she's done an excellent job there. So anyway, I think we're at a point now where we can wrap. I'm just going to give it a few more seconds if anyone else wants to throw a question or a comment. Anything that you'd like to add, Brent, while we're maybe kind of waiting on that?
I think what I'll add is if somebody comes up with a question tonight, don't hesitate, reach out to one of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
So I do want to let you know that Mandy, she's our prime minister of everything that we do. I don't know what we do with.
There is a question.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good. I'm not able to see it on my end.
Yeah.
Okay.
It popped up. So it's the question from Russell's. How would you recommend our team trains? How would you answer that one, Nikki?
There's different ways. We offer training. So we provide virtual training, we provide classroom training, and we look at it holistically. So it's not an event, it's a process. We find that what's really helpful in organizations, and if you have a larger organization, is having a team huddle every morning before the day starts. And these are the things that we want to be mindful and cognizant of today. And oh, by the way, let's spend 5 minutes on this particular item when it comes to hold and transfer. So having those spot trainings, but also having, I'm a singer, so having a song sheet that everyone's singing, from the same song sheet, and that you have those expectations. So Russell, that's a great question. And I think you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
You have to have your way, it's what is our way of doing things, and having those expectations. There has to be accountability in your training. So practicing, the calls that we record help us to spot train in certain areas. So, I mean, if I were to give an ad for Dead Ringers, we're here to help you with the training. That's who we are. That's what we do. So
yeah, that data is the key. Again, there's that data. And Russell, what's going to do is it's going to give us a high level of where the area is. Then from there, you can actually break it down into who specifically. And remember, this is only opportunities to get better. It's not ever, oh, look at the negative. It's where the opportunities, because none of us are ever perfect. We're not going to be, and it's going to shift. And we got some people that, from what we're seeing, do very well with one-on-ones instead of groups. There's just so many different ways. I don't think there's a one answer. It's just to start doing what you can. I mean, yeah, for anyone on this call, start pulling the material any way you can and just start working one piece at a time.
Thanks for that question. So as we wrap here, we have our next webinar, and we will have a link available through the chat from Mandy. I mentioned her earlier, and you can register right here on the fly. But also, if you are signed up for any of our materials or you're in our database, you'll get a link for this. But it's on July 17th, next month at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's featuring Craig Meehan, and Craig is from ASD, which is the answering service company. And he's going to be sharing things that they've learned, stats from answering services, and how they can affect and make things better for you as a funeral organization, a cemetery organization. And just an aside here, we know that when we get an answering service, that the scores are higher on our end, because they're asking the questions that have to be asked to get that to the business. So anyway, Craig's an amazing guy. We got to meet him at the ICCFA experience earlier this year. And so he has lots of do's and don'ts when considering an answering service, things to think about. And yeah, so please join us next month with Craig at ASD. And again, that's the 17th at 3 p.m. Brent, this has been so fun. I hope that I'm going to apologize that we kind of, had a little banter back and forth and things like that. And I had no idea you were a shoe salesman. I learned something new about you every day. But thanks for being a part of this. And we're really happy at Dead Ringers to have you helping us out on the team.
Oh, thank you. I'm having a lot of fun here. I'm glad to be here. So
great.
And glad all of you joined us. I want to say thank you. It's an honor.
So this has been recorded. So if you have some folks that maybe missed this today, feel free to share it with the team if they're unable to be a part of it. But thanks so much, everyone. And look us up at deadringers.co. And we have lots of great information out there. Russell, that might be some tips and things there regarding the next steps for training that you'll find on our website. So see what I did there, guys? That's called follow-up.
Good job.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you next month, the 17th at 3 p.m.
You guys.
All right. Thanks. Bye.